Now, if only I could animate it as easily as writing that scene direction. Hey, and welcome to Blending FX. I'm someone who knows their way around Adobe After Effects and doesn't really want to have to become a 3D artist just to have the occasional bit of 3D in their projects. In this series of videos, I'm looking at Blender, the free open source 3D program, to see how I can use it to get what I need to use in After Effects. In a previous video, I showed how to take a model I'd found on the internet, this awesome model of the Enterprise B by Chris Kuhn, and export it for use in either Video Copilot Element 3D, Helium X's Helium, C4D Lite, or the current beta release of After Effects. But I hit a snag where the texture files wouldn't export, and because of that, the next logical option is to animate directly in Blender and export that animation into AE. So that's what we're going to do. So here I am in Blender with Chris's model, but on loading, I made sure to keep the default layout by unchecking the hidden Load UI option. And the first thing we need to do is create a camera. Make sure you're in object mode, and then go to Add, Camera. Tap 0 on the number pad to look through the camera, and then if I hold the center mouse button and then move around, I can leave the camera view and I can see where it is. Now I'll just use the move tools and line the camera up with the model. And checking the ship is in frame, go to Render, Render Image to see what we've got. Now this will be different for every model, so don't worry too much about these steps. I'll still talk through what I'm doing, but it's still more about the principles than copying this result directly. So Mr. Kuhn's model has some interior lighting, which looks awesome. And you can see on my PC that a single frame took quite a few seconds to render. Trust me, once you get started using 3D software, you'll never complain about After Effects render times again. The image is largely black, but that's not unusual. Here's my asteroids from the asteroid field tutorial. In this scene, I have a light source which should be casting very strong shadows. But everything is uniformly lit. I struggled with this for ages. Again, Blender community, you need to make this more obvious. It turns out that Blender comes with an Omni light built into every scene, but it isn't part of the object panel, and it cannot be removed. And it's not even named a light. You can find its controls by clicking on the World Properties section. It's called Surface. You can change this colour, drop the strength, and so on. For a space scene, you could drop it all the way to black, which gets you this. Or, if I just leave it at dark grey, I get some detail in the shadows, which might come in handy in After Effects after rendering. Either way, it's good to know about, and Mr. Kuhn has already made use of it in his model. The surface was set to black. So now it's time to light the model, and in space this would typically be a single light source as if from a nearby star. So we'll go to Add, Light, Sun, and we get this movable point with a direction control. You can just grab and drag this light source around, or use the transform controls in the object properties and move the sliders. Once you think you've got the position and angle right, check it in Render Image. That looks pretty good. And if we just move the camera to the other side, let's see what it looks like in shadow. Neat. And now it comes down to animating the bee. That's Enterprise B, I'm not saying bitch here, I'm not that street. And I think this is where I want to talk about animation principles. For the first 70 years of cinema, it was more or less impossible to add practical models or special effects to a shot if the camera was moving. Then came Star Wars and John Dykstra and his motion-controlled Dykstra Flex system, which allowed movie makers to move the camera and model in repeated motion to achieve spectacular results. But even then, just because they could animate all sorts of movements, didn't mean they should. I've noticed that an awful lot of visual effects scenes in movies tend to stick to treating their camera like it's on a tripod. That is allowing it to pan and tilt, but not dolly. And I think that's because that's how the human eye works. We move left and right and up and down and turn our heads, but our eyes don't zoom. We need to move forwards to get closer to an object, but when we're watching a movie, we physically aren't moving. So why am I lecturing you on all this? Well, I think we can use this language of cinema as a rule of thumb for how to animate 3D models. especially when learning how to. A bit like the rule of thirds helps you frame a shot. Rules are made to be broken, of course, but there are times when your shot just doesn't look quite right. And then these rules can help identify what the issue is. So for my sequence, I'm not going to move the camera. But if I did need to move the camera, check out this video where I show you a script to copy Blender's camera move into After Effects. I'm going to position my camera at 0, 0, 0, and I'll set its angle to 0, 2, except for X, which I'll set looking at 90 degrees. So I have a really simple shot to deal with. Let's jump into the output properties and set the frame rate to what I'm using in After Effects. These days I stick to 30 FPS. And make sure the resolution is right, and I may as well set up my output folder too. And I'll stick to PNG files, with the PNG option for alpha channels. And at 30 frames per second for 10 seconds, that's 300 frames I'll need. Now, I could animate the model using the transform controls and manually animate the rotation of the ship to match, using these dots which become keyframes when you click on them. But that creates a lot of work, and it's really easy to mess up. So instead, let's use Blender's equivalent of orient to path. In the modeling tab, tap 7 to get a top view of the scene, and making sure you're in object mode, go to Add, Curve, Path. And then switch to edit mode. I have an orange line of 5 points. This isn't the motion path, instead these are the controllers for a path. And using the move tool, you can see the actual smooth path as I drag these points around. The starting point is the leftmost point, so I'll position that behind and to the side of the camera. And the rightmost is the end of the curve. So using the various views, I'll now position these points. This black curve is the line the Enterprise will fly down. And when I think it's right, go back to the model and then go to the Constraints Properties panel. It looks like 2 wheels linked by a belt. And click Add Object Constraint and choose Follow Path. And drag in the NURBS path object. If I scrub the offset property, you can see the ship fly down the path and even continue to fly past it. And if I switch to the top view, see it's angling correctly to the direction. I can still adjust the rotations if I need to, of course. Back in the Constraints panel, I could use the Animate Path button. This will let Blender determine a movement for me, but I may want a bit more control, so I'll animate the offset instead. And of course, I can move the path points if I need to, too. When I'm ready, on frame 0, click on the offset dot to set a keyframe. Then move to frame 300 and move the offset and set a new keyframe. The animation tab is best for this. If I go to View, Toggle Graph Editor, you can see a speed graph. With Bezier handles where you can adjust the acceleration of the offset, which isn't the same as adjusting the speed. Points further away from each other will see the ship move faster, I think. For this shot though, with it being in space, I'm going to hold Shift and click on each keyframe point and then right click and choose Interpolation Mode Linear. And that's it! In the next episode in this series, I'll talk about rendering out this sequence and then compositing it in After Effects, which will help elevate the shot. Hopefully. I mean, I'll do my best, but I'm not John Dykstra. I can't even spell ILM.